The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
We are governed, our minds are moulded, our taste formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of, men such as Edward Bernays.
I would not have a clue who that is.
No, I'm not.
No?
No.
No.
No, I'm not.
No.
Never heard of him.
No.
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 I can't say.
Born 1891 in Vienna, Germany, to parents Anna and Ellie Bernays, double nephew to psychiatrist Sigmund Freud. In 1892, Edward moved from Germany to New York City, where he attended DeWitt Clinton High School. He graduated from Cornell University with a degree in horticulture in 1912, but chose journalism as his first career. During World War I, Bernays worked for Woodrow Wilson's administration under the Committee of Public Information. The purpose of the CPI was to influence Americans' public opinion towards supporting US participation in World War I via a prolonged propaganda campaign. The CPI first used material that was based on fact, but spun it to present an upbeat picture of the American war effort. The end of the war stunned Bernays by how much the democracy slogan swayed public opinion at home and abroad. After gaining working knowledge of manufacturing consent, he began flirting with his own ideas about propaganda's role in influencing opinion through his Uncle Freud's theories of psychoanalysis. Eventually, he fathered his own pseudoscience in the form of engineering consent. In 1928, Bernays released a book entitled Propaganda. Bernays is quoted in saying, "It is possible to regiment the public mind every bit as much as an army regiments their bodies." After the success of the Lehman Brothers and others, big New York banks financed the development of department stores, confident that they could use the techniques pioneered by Bernays to persuade their customers into buying products that they might not have even bothered with before. This period saw the introduction of techniques of product placement and pseudo-scientific product endorsement so familiar to us today.
If we understand the mechanisms and motives of the group mind, it is now possible to control and regiment the masses according to our own will without their knowledge.
Edward Bernays was hired by Lucky Strike Cigarette Company to help boost sales for women. At the time, it was a social dogma for women to be smoking cigarettes in the street. When surveys showed that women objected to Lucky Strike cigarettes because of the green packaging, Edward Bernays contacted fashion designers and told them that the new fashion trends this season was green, but not just simply any green, the same shade of green as Lucky Strike cigarettes. Recognising that women were still riding high in the new suffrage movement, Bernays used this as the basis for his new campaign. Bernays staged the 1929 Easter Parade in New York City, showing models holding lit Lucky Strike cigarettes or torches of freedom. Bernays created this event as news, which of course it wasn't. Bernays convinced industries that news, not advertising, was the best medium to carry their message to an unsuspecting public. The element industry had a bad reputation for fluoride pollution. They needed a way to get rid of their toxic waste. Bernays was hired by Oscar Ewing, whom had been working for the top government officials to sign off on the endorsement of water fluoridization. Recent declassified government documents have shed new light on the decades-old debate over water fluoridization. Much of the original evidence about fluoride, which suggested that it was safe for human consumption in low doses, was actually generated by the Manhattan Project scientists in the 1940s. These once top-secret documents reveal the vast quantities of fluoride, one of the most toxic substances known to man, was required for the production of weapons-grade plutonium. As a result, fluoride soon became the leading health hazard to bomb program workers and surrounding communities. In describing his practices as a PR man for beech nut bacon, Bernays tells how he would suggest to physicians to say publicly that it is wholesome to eat bacon. For Bernays, he knows the mathematical certainty that large number of persons will follow the advice of their doctors because he, the PR man, understands the psychological relationship of dependence of man and their physicians. Add dentists to the equation and substitute fluoride for bacon and we have the essence of Bernays' propaganda campaign.
No, it's added into the water, but that's about it.
Yes, I know what fluoride is. It's a thing they put in toothpaste, water, whatever, teeth.
Fluoride. It's the stuff that they put in toothpaste and in your drinking water and in a lot of other things, I think.
Why do they do that?
I can't remember. Oh, make your teeth strong?
A little bit. I just know that it's chemical or something like that.
How do you know what it's used for?
Teeth stuff.
Fluoride is something that they add to products and a lot of water to help with the teeth, as far as I know. That's all I know.
I'm pretty sure it's a chemical that's being put in the tap waters.
No.
Yes, yeah, I know what that is. It's something that we put in the water. It's supposed to help with teeth, but that's about all I know of it.
Fluoride's a chemical they put in the water and also in your toothpaste to protect your tooth enamel.
It's a chemical and it's been added to our water in Mildura recently and it's quite controversial.
Why is that?
Because it is a chemical and some people think it's poisonous and yet other people think it's essential for our teeth.
Okay.
But I guess if they've added it to the water, we've got no choice about it. So.
In the early 20th century, the public came to associate the word propaganda and war with one another. This was no accident. Bernays wrote in his book, Propaganda.
It was, of course, the astounding success of propaganda during the First World War that opened the eyes of the intelligent few in all departments of life to the possibilities of regimenting the public mind.
In 1954, Bernays provided his services to the United Fruit Company in the Eisenhower administration. United Fruit Company first became an institution in Guatemala under the reign of General George Ubico. Ubico's favourable attitude towards outside investment prompted UFCO to become thoroughly involved in Guatemala. Ubico gave UFCO its two huge banana estates of Tequestate and Bananaera, each covering hundreds of square miles, as a gift. When Jacob Arbers implemented land reform under Decree 900, which would give back 400,000 acres of land belonging to United Fruit Company back to Guatemalan people. Arberes' government granted the United Fruit Company $1.2 million as compensation for the lands United Fruit Company valued at over $16 million. However, United Fruit Company had been in a habit of grossly underestimating the value of its lands to avoid taxes. This discrepancy caused the United Fruit Company to appeal to the US government for intervention and launch an all-out propaganda war to the Arberes regime. Enter Edward Bernays. Bernays began paying journalists to travel to Guatemala to form fact-finding missions, and on exposing them to staged events showing an onslaught of communism in the country. This would eventually lead to the overthrow of the Arberes government. It was Bernays' 1928 book Propaganda that inspired Hitler's disinformation campaign against the German people during World War I, and was the basis for Mein Kampf a few years later. US President Bill Clinton openly referred to Edward Bernays as my mentor. On March 4, 1994, Bernays passed away at age 103. Even though the man himself is gone, his presence is still felt in all forms of media and politics today.
Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government which is the true ruling power of our country.